Hello, my dear friends. I hope you are all doing well. Today's episode is a little bit different. Many of you have requested this topic, so please let me know in the comment section if you find the episode helpful. Hey, Andrew, why do you look so down today?
Nothing much, Sonia. I was just feeling a bit worried about my English grammar.
About grammar? What's going on?
I've been struggling with some common grammar mistakes, even though I've been learning English for a while now.
I understand, Andrew. Grammar can be tricky, but don't worry. Lots of people face the same issues. Are you focusing on any specific areas?
I often get confused with subject-verb agreement and the correct use of tenses. It's frustrating.
Those are common challenges. But the good news is, with a bit of practice and some tips, you can overcome them. Let's start with subject-verb agreement.
Sure, what exactly should I keep in mind?
Subject-verb agreement means that the subject and the verb in a sentence must agree in number. For example, he runs is correct, while he runs is incorrect. It's a basic rule, but easy to overlook.
That makes sense. But sometimes, it gets confusing with collective nouns, or when the subject is separated from the verb.
Exactly. Collective nouns like team or group can be tricky because they can be singular or plural depending on the context. Also, sentences like the bouquet of flowers is beautiful can be confusing because bouquet is the subject, not flowers.
I see. So, it's about identifying the actual subject of the sentence?
Correct. And sometimes, the subject and verb are separated by a phrase or clause, which can make it tricky. For example, the dog, who has many toys, plays in the yard. Here, dog is the subject and plays is the verb.
I see. So, it's about identifying the actual subject of the sentence?
Correct. And sometimes, the subject and verb are separated by a phrase or clause, which can make it tricky. For example, the dog, who has many toys, plays in the yard. Here, dog is the subject and plays is the verb.
That's helpful. Are there other common areas where subject-verb agreement is challenging?
Yes, there are a few. For example, with indefinite pronouns like everyone or somebody, we use a singular verb. So, it's everyone loves pizza, not everyone loves pizza. Another tricky area is with compound subjects joined by and or. For example, my friend and colleague are joining us versus my friend or colleague is joining us.
That's a lot to keep in mind. Any tips for practicing these rules?
Sure, try breaking down the sentence to identify the subject and then matching the verb accordingly. Reading aloud can also help, as sometimes our ears catch mistakes our eyes don't. And, of course, practice makes perfect. Writing and revising your sentences can reinforce these rules.
Great advice. Now, let's talk about tenses. I often get confused about when to use past perfect versus simple past.
That's a common issue. The past perfect tense is used to show that one action happened before another in the past. For example, she had finished her homework before she went out. The simple past tense is used for actions that happened at a specific time in the past, like she finished her homework last night.
How about the present perfect tense? I mix that up with the simple past sometimes.
The present perfect tense is used for actions that happened at an unspecified time in the past or that have relevance to the present. For example, I have visited Paris means you visited Paris at some point, but we don't know when. It can also be used for actions that started in the past and continue to the present, like I have lived here for 5 years.
That helps. Any tips for practicing these tenses?
Yes. Try creating timelines for different events to see how tenses place them in time. Also, practice by writing short stories or diary entries using different tenses. And again, reading helps a lot. Pay attention to how authors use different tenses in their writing.
Do you have any other common mistakes we should watch out for?
Definitely. Misplaced modifiers are another common mistake. For example, she almost drove her kids to school every day means she almost did it but didn't. It should be she drove her kids to school almost every day.
That's a good one. It's easy to overlook these small details.
Absolutely. It's important to place modifiers next to the word they are supposed to modify. Another common mistake is the use of double negatives. For example, I don't need any help should be I don't need any help.
That's true. Any other tips?
Yes, watch out for homophones, words that sound the same but have different meanings, like there, and there. It's easy to mix them up in writing. And be careful with punctuation, especially comma splices. For example, I went to the store, and I bought milk should be I went to the store, and I bought milk or I went to the store, I bought milk.
These are great tips, Sonia. I'll definitely practice more. Thanks for the help.
You're welcome, Andrew. Remember, everyone makes mistakes, but with practice, you can improve. Now, let's ask our audience. How do you handle common grammar mistakes? Share your tips in the comment. Before we go, let's quickly recap some of the key points. We talked about subject-verb agreement, which means ensuring the subject and verb in a sentence agree in number. For example, the dog barks, not the dog barks. We also touched on tricky areas like collective nouns and indefinite pronouns.
Right, and we also covered tenses, particularly the difference between past perfect and simple past, as well as present perfect. Past perfect is for actions that happened before another past action, like, she had left before I arrived. Simple past is for actions at a specific time in the past, like, she left at 5 p.m. Present perfect is for actions with relevance to the present or unspecified times, like, I have seen that movie.
Exactly. We also discussed misplaced modifiers and how they should be placed next to the word they modify. For example, she almost failed every test means she nearly failed them all, but she failed almost every test means she failed most of them. And let's not forget about double negatives and homophones.
Homophones like there, and there can be really tricky. There is possessive, there refers to a place, and there is a contraction for they are. Paying attention to these can make a big difference in your writing.
Absolutely. And don't forget about punctuation, especially avoiding comma splices. Use a conjunction or a semicolon to separate independent clauses. For example, instead of I went to the store, I bought milk, say I went to the store, and I bought milk or I went to the store, I bought milk.
These are great reminders. One thing that really helps me is reading my sentences out loud. It makes it easier to catch mistakes that I might miss when just reading silently.
That's a fantastic tip, Andrew. Another thing you can do is write regularly. The more you write, the more familiar you become with the rules, and the easier it gets to avoid these common mistakes. Also, don't be afraid to use tools like grammar checkers, but always review their suggestions critically.
That's true. Tools can be helpful, but they're not always perfect. It's important to understand the rules yourself so you can make informed decisions about your writing.
Exactly. And don't hesitate to ask for feedback from others. Sometimes another set of eyes can catch errors you might miss. Writing groups or language exchange partners can be really useful for this.
Thanks, Sonia. I feel a lot more confident about tackling these grammar issues now. I'm sure our listeners will find these tips helpful too.
I hope so. Remember, everyone makes mistakes, and the key is to keep practicing and learning. Now, let's hear from our audience. What grammar mistakes do you struggle with? How do you overcome them? Share your experiences and tips in the comments below. Please let us know, guys. Did you find this episode helpful? If yes, please let us know in the comment section so that we can continue bringing you more useful content.
And if you found the video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more tips and discussions on improving your English.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Keep practicing, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. They're part of the learning process. And remember to listen our podcast every single day to improve.
Absolutely. Until next time, happy learning.
Bye everyone.
Bye.